Back here on First Things First, the Raiders made the first big splash of the NFL offseason, trading for Antonio Brown, giving him a new deal worth up to $54 million. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, joins us now to help us sort through all of it. Drew, good morning. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning. Good to be with you guys. It's going to be a busy day. The start of NFL free agency. I'm in my office, ready to go.
I'm sure. Well, we appreciate the time. Let's start. Take us back to Friday. How did this all come together? Because things had been changing throughout the course of last week.
Yeah, well, evidently the Steelers and the Raiders agreed on a deal compensation-wise, and then the Raiders got permission to discuss a deal with us. We had shared with the Steelers all along that we would be looking to adjust Antonio's contract. We felt that he deserved to be the highest paid receiver in football moving forward, and so that was important. We engaged in those discussions with the Raiders, and ultimately were able to get a deal done. John Gruden can be pretty persuasive.
Drew, this is Chris Carter. Thanks for coming on, and congratulations on getting the deal done. You mentioned John Gruden and the role that he played. A couple questions. In trying to get AB to Oakland, did John Gruden express to you who would be the quarterback? Because I heard an interview where you talked about Derek Carr being the future in Oakland as the quarterback.
You know, every indication that we got was that Antonio would be catching passes from Derek Carr. We never discussed with the Raiders anything other than Antonio's situation, but it certainly seemed to us, based upon Derek Carr's involvement, his interaction with Antonio, that those two would become a dynamic duo moving forward.
In your opinion, Drew, why wasn't this situation in Pittsburgh salvageable? Because we know the Steelers multiple times wanted it to be salvageable. Why wasn't it?
You know, it's true that there were discussions about potentially trying to work things out. But after 9 historical years, it really was time for Antonio to move on and get a fresh start with another organization. Unfortunately, relationships were really not at a level that they needed to be for Antonio and the organization to continue effectively. You've got to have a strong relationship moving forward, and that just wasn't the case anymore. We met with the Steelers. We met with Mr. Rooney, Kevin Colbert, the general manager, and we both agreed, not just Antonio, we both agreed it would be best for Antonio to be traded.
Drew, how much of the way that relationship ended was because of AB's and Antonio's relationship with the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, when you guys went in to ask for a trade, and not just with the Pittsburgh Steelers brass?
Well, that would really be a better question for Antonio and Ben Roethlisberger. I would just say, as a whole, things really deteriorated that last week of the season, and then shortly after the season. You know, the NFL is like anything else. It's the relationship between players and coaches and the organization, economics and contracts. All of those things are fluid. And unfortunately, at the end of the year, it broke down. And it was time, after I said 9 terrific years, that Antonio would be better off finding a new home, and better for the Steelers to move in a different direction. And we were able to work that out. And hopefully everybody won here. The Steelers, the Raiders, and, of course, our client, Antonio.
One more question about the very end. Do you think that it was handled on the very end of the very end, the Week 17 game, the days leading up to it, the right way by your client? Or do you think that could have been handled maybe a little differently and still gotten to this result that you guys wanted?
Well, I was inside the whole process, and I support Antonio 100%. He wanted to play in that game. Unfortunately, the Steelers decided not to. And that was really the beginning of this deterioration. I'm not going to characterize anything that the Steelers did, whether they handled it right or wrong. I support my client 110% from the beginning through the end. And listen, we're not looking backwards, we're looking forwards. We're excited about the future.
Drew, I know you're excited about the future. A little notes as far as moving forward. Last week, there were a lot of rumors as far as Buffalo being involved and Buffalo wanting to bring AB to Buffalo. Can you get us straight on that? Is the truth of this that Pittsburgh Steelers and Buffalo could not come to compensation agreement, and it was not Antonio who vetoed going to the Buffalo Bills?
What I can tell you is that that trade was never close to happening, in my opinion. I don't think that the Steelers and the Bills were able to reach agreement. There wasn't any other characterization besides that. Again, guys, I deal with the Bills, the Steelers, the Raiders, all 32 teams. I have a positive relationship with all three of those clubs. And I'm certainly not going to get into any details or make anybody look bad. I think all three of those organizations, we've got clients on a lot of them. LaShawn McCoy with the Bills, some great players on the Steelers,
sure.
And we've got some terrific clients on the Raiders as well.
Hey, Drew, you've had a chance to talk to Antonio, I'm sure, over the past 2 days with all of this going on. What has he said? How excited is he about matching up with John Gruden and that offense out there in Oakland?
He's really elated. This is a dream team here. This is a great fit for Antonio. We, like everyone else, think the world of John Gruden. He's one of the all-time great NFL coaches in my estimation, and Antonio's. We've got one of the top quarterbacks in the league for the Oakland Raiders. We've got Raiders Nation. Antonio's excited about playing in Oakland this year, going to Las Vegas. That's going to be a thrilling situation moving forward. The Raiders have great mystique, the silver and black. The Raiders are one of the marquee franchises in recent NFL history. Madden and everything else, and all the Hall of Famers that they have, the great tradition, all the championships. Al Davis, just win, baby. You know, this is a fun fit, a great fit, and we believe Antonio and the Raiders are going to be very successful moving forward.
Drew, obviously, without naming names, I'm curious if you have any clients that have reached out to you since this went down and looked at it and said, hold on, AB had 3 years left on his deal, no guaranteed money on his deal, was unhappy where he was at. Now he has a lot of guaranteed money, a new contract, is happy where he's at, and he got it by simply saying, I want out, almost NBA style. I demand a trade, I'm not showing up, trade me. Do you think this could be the start of something bigger for guys, it's a very select list, that have the type of reputation as far as on-the-field accomplishment as Antonio Brown, or is this an outlier, a black swan event that we won't see duplicated?
Hard to say. Every case is different. Every player has different reasons for wanting to change teams or get a new contract. I think that if you're an agent and a player and you have a similar situation as Antonio's, then you should definitely be aggressive and try to put yourself into a healthier situation. I certainly would encourage players and representatives to be aggressive to find a great fit. The NFL is a very tough business. Guys have a lot of pressure on them. Players get cut all the time with contracts. Players can sign deals 1 year and get released the next. You'll see that every day this time of year. Why shouldn't a player, if he's uncomfortable with his situation and has the ability to improve it, why not go and get it? Of course, I think it should be more commonplace. Of course, I hope this becomes more common. Of course, I've heard from several clients to emulate this, and only time will tell if more people will follow Antonio's lead.
All right, Drew, we thank you so much for joining us this morning. All the best to Antonio as he moves forward over the course of the next couple months and he gets set to be an Oakland Raider.